Does your business run without you? That's the question. Does your business run without you?
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast.
Minisode.
Very, very quick minisode for you today, because really, I don't need to teach anything today. I just need to remind you of a principle that we have talked about many times here on the podcast. First one on pause, remind you that we're sponsored by a great company called Synapse. Synapse, of course, is support, if you will, for your appraisal reports. If you have ever wondered, what if somebody asks me where I got this adjustment? Synapse is for you. You can find out more by going to the website spark4appraisers.com, spark4appraisers.com. All right, folks, I want to talk briefly today about the difference between having a job and owning a business. Now, let me back up for just a second, because when I talk to appraisers, they will often talk in terms of owning an appraisal business. They will say that they are a business owner. But to be honest with you, and by the way, I would have as well, okay? If you don't know, you don't know. If you really back up, though, and think about what they are saying, there is a difference, a huge difference, in my opinion, between owning your job and owning an appraisal business. What is the difference? There is one, in my opinion, one key indicator that makes all the difference. But first, I want to remind you of something that makes all the difference in your appraisal report, and that is having support versus not having support. Folks, it's one thing to use $65 a square foot for your adjustment. It's a whole other thing to actually have something to point to when someone says, where did that $65 a square foot come from? Synapse will help you to decipher the data that allows you to put something in your work file that you can answer that question. How cool would that be? Well, it doesn't have to be how cool would that be. It is cool, and you can be using it today. Spark4appraisers.com. Again, spark4appraisers.com. Welcome back, everybody. Dustin Harris hanging out in the podcast, well, on the podcast treadmill again. Welcome back. It's interesting when you talk to appraisers, they often think that they are business owners when indeed they're actually owners of their own job. Okay. Now, this goes back to the principles taught in the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. If you've not read the E-Myth, you need to. If you've read the E-Myth, you need to do it again. I try to read the E-Myth at least once a year. This year, I did something a little bit different. I've shared with you on the podcast that I listened to the E-Myth for attorneys, which might as well be called the E-Myth for appraisers. Highly recommend that. Thank you, Pete, a member of my mastermind who taught me that. He said he listened to E-Myth for attorneys. He said, Dustin, you got to listen to it. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I've already listened to E-Myth this year, but okay. I loved it. I loved it, loved it, loved it. Pete, hat tip. Thank you. The E-Myth teaches about owning your job. The E-Myth stands for the entrepreneurial myth. And basically what Michael Gerber is trying to teach is that just because you are good at something doesn't mean that you're going to be a good business owner. And too often he uses the example of somebody who likes to bake pies. Okay, that's the main character in his book, The E-Myth. By the way, the book is written in such a way that's it's a story. It's great principles, but taught in story form. And so this individual starts a bakery and quote unquote owns a business, but really what she does is she just owns her job. She loves to bake, so she opens up her own bakery, and she finds that it's very difficult to be a great baker and a business owner at the same time. Sound familiar? This is what we appraisers often do. We're great appraisers, right? So why not? We'll start our own appraisal business. That's what everybody else does. Folks, there is a huge difference between owning your job and owning a business, and here is the key indicator. Here's the question I would ask you, and that I would ask that you ask yourself. Because if the answer is no to the following question, wait a minute, it depends on how I ask this. If the answer is no, you either own your job or don't own your job. And let me ask the question, okay? The question is this: can you take 2 weeks off and still come home to a viable business? In other words, does your business run without you? That's the question. Does your business run without you? If the answer to that is no, in other words, you have to be present for you to have success as an appraiser. The answer to the question, folks, is you own your job. I'm sorry to offend most of you out there, okay? But it's true. You do not own a business until you can replace yourself. By the way, so many people come to me and they say, Dustin, I want to sell my business like you did. I want to get to the point that my business is worth something. And the first piece of advice I'm going to give them is, great, you need to replace yourself. What do you mean? Your appraisal business is not valuable if you are the appraisal business. And you know that because if you cannot take a vacation, if you cannot leave for more than just a few days and have that business sustain itself, then guess what, folks? You do not own a business. And you especially do not own a valuable business. So ask yourself the question today, folks. Do you own your job or do you own your business? Thank you for joining me today, folks. It's always a pleasure. I really value your time. I appreciate you listening as you're driving to and from your appraisal inspections. I hope that you'll continue to join me. Thanks for joining me today. Go create some value.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.